So a great view of the rapidly changing lending and pay later space in India. So switching to another aspect of open finance, we're going to start looking at insurtech, especially the insurtech stack. So I'm very pleased to welcome Sumit Ramani. He's the founder and consulting architect actuary at I almost said architect. I'm sorry about that, Sumit, because I'm used to saying architect so many times.
Yeah.
Actuary, I'm not sure we've had an actuary on API Days before. So I'm very pleased to for you to bring us that experience.
Thanks a lot, John, for the wonderful introduction and having me here. So let me start my presentation by asking a question. I'm not sure if I can see how many of you would raise hands, but let's get started. So, how many of you have ever used UPI? I can't see. We can't do a show of hands here, but I guess almost all of you would have done it. So it's essentially everywhere, right? Right from vegetable vendors to jewelry shops, it's all pervasive. The question at this point in time one would want to ask is why UPI is insanely successful. But before we answer that question, let's also define what does insanely successful mean. So today, about 5 trillion INR is exchanged every month through UPI. About and this is done through 1 billion transactions in a month. And at this point in time, more than 20 countries are contemplating to implement UPI or India stack. Equally, it's because of India stack, of which UPI is a part, the financial inclusion in India increased substantially. To put things in perspective, in about 2008-9 time, about 17% individuals had a bank account, and in 8-9 odd years, that is in 2008, 17-18 time, the this percentage increased from 17 to 80%. Some of the estimates suggest that if India were to do it without India stack, it would have taken 40 years. So what could have been achieved in 40 years was achieved in 10 years. So we clearly now understand that uh, India stack is insanely successful. But what really led to its success? Apart from many other things, the political will and the implementation, one of the key factors that led to the success of India stack was the fact that about 200 banks, which is about every bank in India, implemented same set of APIs so that they could do transactions with each other. So if a new player like a Google Pay or Paytm comes in and they implement same set of APIs, they get connected to 200 banks on day one. If in absence of these same set of APIs, they would have had to had discussions, collaboration with each of the 200 banks, and that would have taken ages. So this is precisely why India Stack became successful. India Stack revolutionized payments in India. National Health Stack is revolutionizing healthcare in India. But what about insurance? This is where India InsurTech stack comes in. India InsurTech stack, in very simple words, is a India stack for insurance. So now that we have a feel for what India InsurTech stack is, let's dive in the agenda. We'll start by looking at what does the end product look like, and then we'll dive into answering the more fundamental question: why do we need India InsurTech stack? We then would just be the right time to open the Pandora box and see what does a building block look like. Then I'll also update on the progress that we have made so far, and identify the next steps. And hopefully by end of this presentation, some of you would be willing to contribute to India InsurTech stack, which is being built through open collaboration, and there would be an opportunity for it. So yeah, what does an end product look like? Thankfully for us, we have some precedents already set. India InsurTech, while we are writing up India InsurTech stack paper now, we already have India InsurTech, India stack, we already have national health stack, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel in terms of the architecture. We know that India InsurTech stack would also have multiple layers, like national health stack diagram that you see here. It would also have, each layer would have several building blocks, and each building block would have a data and tech standard for all of them, right? I know that this could be, this is very high level and may not make sense to everyone. So let's dive in a bit deeper and take an example from insurance world. So let's assume that you are a customer and you are trying to buy an insurance policy. So one of the first things that you would do is basically you would understand your needs. You would, once you have understood your needs, which would mean that you know you need term insurance of, let's say, 2 crores, then you need to decide, okay, which insurance company should I buy this product from. Then you also need to decide which product of that insurance company, and then you figure out what is the premium that you are required to pay. You go ahead, make the payment. Of course, the underwriting happens in the background, and then the policy is issued, which gets stored in a digitlocker, right? What I just described is a very shortened, abridged version of insurance buying journey. Now imagine all of it in the form of building blocks. There could be a building block which just analyzes your needs. There could be a building block which just does the code generation, that is identifies premium for you. And there could be a building block which only is responsible for payment, which most likely would be India Stack. And then there could be a block which only issues the policies, and there is of course DigiLocker, right? So essentially what we're saying is what I'm describing as building block could very well be imagined in the form of APIs, right? For most techies, it's they automatically would have assumed that this is an API. For a more business person, this is a building block, and each building block would have technology and data standards like data privacy, data security, consent-based data sharing, which we'll talk about in a bit detail later at a later stage. Aishwarya also touched about it touched about it. Then also there would be data standards so that these blocks become interoperable, and all these data and tech standards would be similar to what India Stack and National Stack have already used, and we'll also very cognizant of the policymakers' initiatives wherein we'll derive inspiration on data and tech standards. So let's take a step further. So what happens once the paper is out, right? We at IIA, that is India InsurTech Association, which is a non-profit organization started about 18 months ago and is aimed to build ecosystem for insurtechs in India, and has about 110 members at this point in time. The role and India InsurTech Stack is one of the flagship projects of India InsurTech Association. So what is the role of India InsurTech Association here? We, as India InsurTech Association, are going to define the building blocks, come up with standards, and engage with the industry bodies, which would be insurers, reinsurers, intermediaries, policymakers, consultants, lawyers, to be able to define India InsurTech Stack paper. And based on the response that we've got from the first version, that is a vision paper that was out 2 months ago, we are very confident that it would be eventually adopted by Government of India and implemented by the industry with the help of industry bodies. This is very similar to what happened in case of India Stack and National Health Stack. So now all of us have a feel for what is India InsurTech Stack. We know that India InsurTech Stack is a flagship project of India InsurTech Association. But the key question still remains unanswered. That is, why do we need India InsurTech Stack? Right? While of course it's the broader aim is that it would revolutionize insurance in India, but how is going to do it, right? So let's answer that question. With India InsurTech Stack, we expect rapid growth because once the standards are out, there would be players who would implement these building blocks for the wider industry. If you look at it, how it works now, each insurance player or each insurance intermediary has build their tech stack from scratch. All of them have a different stack which does exact same thing or very similar things, but they're not interoperable. So a stack from company A cannot be used by company B. So there's a lot of inefficiency in a way that everyone had to do the exact same things, which could have been done through collaboration if there was a standard that was defined. And hence, once a standard is defined, the blocks are implemented. Anyone can use those blocks. And theoretically, if a new player comes in, they could utilize the building blocks and get started very, very quickly. The next point is efficiency. Clearly, when the blocks are defined, standards are defined, the startups or insurance players would pick the blocks to implement they are most comfortable implementing. So if I'm most comfortable implementing need analyzer, I would just do that and rely on others to do implement other blocks. So since I'm most comfortable in implementing few blocks, I would do it would make the entire process more efficient. I don't have to understand other blocks to be able to implement it because, for example, on day zero, I may not have expertise around it. And hence, it makes the entire value chain a lot more efficient. The third thing that we expect to happen is rapid innovation. Uh, Once the building blocks are defined, the standards are defined, how do you see insurtech surviving, right? Because if everyone is implementing the exact same stuff, where is the differentiating factor? Differentiating factor is essentially the innovation. Of course, the output could look very, very similar, but how do you implement it? What is the value that you bring in would ensure that you continue to remain in the game, and hence there would be a lot of innovation happening. Clearly, the end customer is going to get benefited from the efficiency uh, and the transparency of how India InsurTech stack is being built. Uh, for example, consent manager, which is a common theme across India stack and national health stack, would also be part of India InsurTech stack, which would make the end customer a lot more powerful as far as their data is concerned. So now we have a feel for what India InsurTech stack is. We also understand why it needs to be done. We know that each India InsurTech stack would have series of building blocks, and each building block would have data and tech standards. So let's understand, what does a building block look like? We've been talking about it a lot, but what does it look like? For those familiar with APIs, it looks very similar to an API. So there would be an input, there would be output. For each of the building block, we'll define what does the output look like. But if you look at it, if you open just the needs analyzer from insurance point of view, right, there could be needs analyzer for retail customers like you and I, or for commercial customers like your organization covering you for medical insurance, right? If you look into retail and drill down further, it could be across lines of business, that is life, health in general. And in general insurance, there could be motor insurance, there could be home insurance. For life, it could be death insurance, that is term insurance or retirement protection. Or equally for health, you could have medical or disability insurance. Likewise on commercial side of insurance, right, as well. So, and each this building block would have its own data and text standard. So how does it work, right? When we have defined a building block, if a insurtech says or an insurance player says, okay, I'm going to implement this needs analyzer, but I'm only comfortable to implementing it for term insurance, and that is acceptable. Someone could say that I'm only comfortable doing it for retail. That's equally acceptable, right? And someone could say I'll do it all, which is all fine. So as long as the output, that is the output conditions are met in terms of what output you give in a certain format, is if that is defined, that is adhered to, if the underlying tech and data standards are adhered to, then this building block is fine in terms of implementation. In a system which is open, everyone is trying to compete, come up with a more advanced and sophisticated system. We see many implementation of the same block, and depending upon what suits the needs of a or the player who's going to consume it, they'll pick and choose. That's how we see it happening in the steady state. Of course, when we start, things would be, the implementation would depend upon what expertise is available, what needs are more urgent and stuff. If we extend this example a bit further, and bring in the element of consent manager. Now you have needs analyzer wherein the output is what is the total need that you need, total cover that you need to have for term insurance, let's say 3 crore, right? But chances are that you might already have an insurance cover of 1 crore. How does this needs analyzer API know about it, right? And that's where the consent manager comes in. Imagine there is a data registry wherein all the insurance policies of every individual is stored. This is hypothetical at this point in time, but I don't see it being far from reality. So all the insurance policies that, let's say, I have bought is already available, but based only when I give you my consent to access it. Then this needs analyzer could become a lot more powerful, saying that, okay, while your total requirement of term insurance is 3 crores, but we know that you have 1 crore. So all you need to do is bridge that gap and buy term insurance of 2 crores. And this applies to everything that you see here, right? So, but okay, this looks like we've talked about a lot of stuff, but have you made any progress? But before we jump into what progress we have made, let's do a quick recap, because I know that this is complicated. This is being talked about for the first time. So India InsurTech Stack is a project by India InsurTech Association. India InsurTech Stack is being built through open collaboration, like India Stack and National Health Stack. The purpose of India InsurTech Stack is to standardize the insurance value chain and imagine the entire insurance value chain in the form of building blocks. Each building block would have tech and data standards. These building blocks would be eventually uh, implemented by industry players once Government of India adopts it. Based on the feedback that we've got from the policymakers, we're very, very confident that this would be a reality. Okay. So what progress we have made so far, right? We rolled out a vision paper about 2 months back. We got 50 odd responses from the industry players. Partnered with PwC, which put the entire project on overdrive, because this is being developed, built through open collaboration, and this is a mammoth project, would require many more hands and brains than what India InsurTech Association has, which is a volunteer-driven organization. We've also conducted several initial discussions with insurtechs and insurers to get their insights on the business processes, understand the challenges that they face, and get feedback on vision paper, which has been very, very encouraging. Uh, what we intend to do next then? Yeah? So we intend to increase awareness about India InsurTech Stack. This is the third time in last 30 days that I'm talking about India InsurTech Stack. And there's another conference that is lined up later this month where we are going to have a workshop of hour and a half on India InsurTech Stack with industry players. Of course, intend to run series of workshops with in a closed room to get insights on the current challenges and get feedback on the every paper that we roll out. Also collaborate with industry stakeholders, including policymakers. Uh, in next, we'll, like National Health Stack and India Stack, this will be built in a version for, it will be done phase wise. We rolled out the vision paper. There was just a 4-pager document about 2 months ago. Now there is a version that is being worked on, which will have architecture of India InsurTech Stack, like the one we saw on the very first page, which was the architecture of National Health Stack. We'll have a similar architecture for India InsurTech Stack. Then we'll divide the entire project into work streams by lines of business, that is life, health, and general, further subdivided in retail and commercial. And each work stream would work on building blocks for their respective work streams. It's only natural that some of the building blocks would be common across the uh, paper, and that would be merged in the final working paper, which will be rolled out in about 9 months' time. And in about years' time, so when the next API days happens, we'll have a final paper in place. Um, Clearly, so we now know that India InsurTech Stack is where India Stack was about 10 years ago, where National Health Stack was 4 years ago. Today, and like National Health Stack and India InsurTech Stack is built through open collaboration. My question to you today is, when insurance is being revolutionized, do you want to remain as a bystander, or do you want to bring in your expertise, contribute and shape India insurtech stack, and be proud of it for rest of your life. So if you're not a bystander, the next slide is for you. Scan this QR code, identify your interest in contributing to India insurtech stack, and we'll take it from there. Happy to answer questions if any.
Thanks very much. Actually, sorry, Miguel, can you leave the QR code up for a moment longer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, Sumit. I guess the stack concept has been really successful in India, starting with things like digital identity and going to healthcare and the UPI. There, and I think the aspect of where the government helps to define things is at that really base level, so that you mentioned the challenge of companies wanting to differentiate. Well, they can differentiate on top of a common foundation.
Absolutely.
And this is and this enables people to avoid reinventing the wheel and to piggyback off the foundation that has build on the foundation that's already been created. So I think what you described is that there's an ecosystem forming with lots of different players who can specialize in what they're really good at, and plug and play the other pieces that they're not so good at from the other firms that are specializing. Really fascinating to see how this unfolds, and we will definitely have to get you back to API Days India 2023 to see how the insurtech stack has evolved. Thanks very much.